after we talk with this nice gentleman who's just been so sweet to come on today and short notice, Richard C. Lyons. I really appreciate you, especially coming at such a time as this with respect to what happened in the New York races on Tuesday and the going toward socialism that the Democrats have lurched over to. One of the things I wanted to go over today about your DNA of Democracy, your book there that you report about things we need to know. And one thing I want to point out today to people on the left who watch this live stream, what is the difference between the free exchange of goods and services, or as we call it, capitalism, and the lurch towards socialism? What is socialism / communism vis-a-vis capitalism? And welcome, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate being on, Victoria. That's a loaded question, of course.
Sure is.
But what socialism is, it doesn't matter whether you call it socialism or communism or fascism. What it is, controlling the economy and the lives of all the persons underneath you in a manner that is tyrannical. Whether you go to Hitler's Germany or Mao's China or the Russia of the Bolsheviks, it's all the same thing. It's power from the top down, from one tyrant and a few of his cohorts, usually in league with the military, that literally rule every decision in every individual's life in their countries or kingdoms or empires. We are different from the revolutionary line that said that we are endowed as individuals by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The pursuit of happiness was actually going to be in our property, right? Property rights. I was going to mention that, but did not in the Declaration of Independence. But the difference is we derive our rights from God, who is higher than the state. This goes back, Victoria, to the 10 Commandments, the first common law of humanity. Everybody talks about Hammurabi. The law applied to everybody but Hammurabi, but his priests. But the 10 Commandments were different in that it entailed both kings and priests and commoners. And by that common law, we are endowed by certain rights to our life, of course, right? And to the pursuit of happiness. What does that mean? It means, coincident with the Declaration of Independence was Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. That was published. And that is the basis of our free enterprise system, wherein anybody can produce anything that is of help or service to society based on society purchasing that good or service. So what does it mean? You and I can be innovators, Victoria. We can invent a product, we can manufacture a product, we can market it, bring it to market. And if enough people buy it, that's them voting on the product, voting on what we produce. It is democracy applied to an economy. Socialism is the reverse. Look at what Mamdani is proclaiming he wants to do in New York and his other socialist friends. They want to determine what landlords they don't particularly like.
Right.
And take their property, which is unconstitutional in our country. They want to determine what grocery stores they're going to run, what products they're going to have on the shelves. They determine it, not the consumer. And they determine what price that people have to pay for that. They are they're not similar systems, they're not dissimilar. They're diametrically opposite. In our free enterprise system, you and I decide what we're going to create and what we're going to buy and what we're going to furnish our houses with. In a socialist system, the government decides what house you can own and what you can have in that home. And if you don't say about Mamdani, geez, I think you're the greatest, you're going to be a person he doesn't particularly like. You're going to be one of those landlords that gets dispossessed. That's socialism. And nobody is free in a socialist society. And everybody lives in fear.
Well, not right now, of course, Because they're going to get free. They're going to get free stuff. They're going to get free stuff.
Right. It's all free. How can you argue with that? But any common sense person like you and I, Victoria, and your listeners, knows there is nothing on earth that is free. Not even a nail in the hardware store is free. Everything costs something. And either the taxpayer pays for it or you and I pay for it independently as a consumer.
So here we are. We've gotten several. I want you to watch this video.
Sure.
And this is the folks over at the DSA headquarters. And first,
Dancing, no doubt.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Dancing, no doubt.
Oh, here they are. Solidarity forever. So when you hear this, what are they saying? I know you've studied this.
I'm not sure what they're saying, but there's something very dangerous about what you're showing. And that is, where is the center of gravity in the Democratic Party?
Right. There's Mom Donnie.
Where's the energy? The energy is with these guys.
Right.
And solidarity, Victoria, it'll be of interest to your listeners to know that the Democrat Party, since Woodrow Wilson brought socialism in to the party through the administrative state and Frederick Hegel's ideal state theory, they have voted in lockstep. They are a very disciplined party. From the local level to the state level to the federal level, they have one policy and everybody adheres to the line. So if the center of gravity is shifted from being, at one point it was Tip O'Neill. Long ago, during the Reagan years, it isn't even Nancy Pelosi's party anymore. It's not Hakeem Jeffries' party anymore.
Well, let's watch a little bit about Hakeem Jeffries' party, because this is them reacting to Hakeem Jeffries. And let's make sure I've got this. I thought I had this, but of course, you never know. Where they find Hakeem Jeffries and they start booing him. And
did they really?
It's coming up.
That's explosive.
Here we go. I'm going to show this to you right this second. I got to make sure I've got this in my sights. Here we go. Hold on. You'll be able to hear it for yourself. So this is Hakeem Jeffries. He is on television, and this is, and here's what they say to him after. Robespierre lives.
You're next.
So that's what they did to react to what happened on Tuesday. And I think that's telling. As the DSA, I want you to react to all of this. So I'm going to give you one more. And this is the person who is the second in command at DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America. They won a huge victory in New York. I should say never again, as Margaret pointed out earlier today. Here is the number 2 guy at DSA.
Run as Democrats. We're on the Democratic Party ballot line. We contest the primaries. And when they're in the legislature, they're part of the Democratic Party caucus. But we don't agree with the way the Democratic Party establishment organizes or runs its party apparatus. And so we try to build independence by focusing on volunteer-led movement. We think that everyone should be able to be trained and to become someone who can participate in the political process, and we don't really think that Democratic Party campaigns in the establishment are run that way. And I think you really see that difference in the races like we're having tonight. And I think in terms of the agenda, there's a problem in the Democratic Party where they are funded by billionaire donors, and at the same time they're trying to represent the working class. And In our opinion, you have to choose between the billionaire class and the working class. It's just impossible to satisfy all of them.
Okay, so the DSA is actually funded by well-moneyed people from outside the country. So talk about.
I have no doubt. Well, they're trying to make everybody angry, aren't they? I mean, if you're well-to-do, just forget about giving your money to Democrats. And if you happen to be Jewish or have sympathy for the Jews, since what they suffered in World War II, for instance, you're not very liked either, are you? So you shouldn't be a part of that party. The Jewish population of that party has been their foremost fundraisers for decades, and they're literally kicking them out. So I'm very pleased about this. But Victoria, here's the thing: there's going to be a push and shove in this between these, and they shouldn't be called Democrat socialists. These are socialists within the former Democrat Party. It's not even the Democrat Party anymore. I find it remarkable. Where the center of gravity is going to go is what's going to be very telling. And whether the common sense Democrats, those persons who vote Democrat just out of habit, finally wake up and say, this is not my party anymore. This is not common sense. This is the socialism of Cuba. It's the socialism of the Bolsheviks. That's really evil stuff. I'll give you an example. They talk about the anti-Semitism. When the Bolsheviks came to power after the Civil War, they looted first and then burned down 40,000 churches and killed all the priests in Russia. That's the kind of stuff this is.
Well, and all the violence that has occurred as a result of the leftist street takeovers and all sorts of other things, they've done this on purpose. They are bought and paid for by billionaires themselves, and Roysing comes to mind, and may not be getting paid, but everybody above them who's organizing them are getting paid for sure. And so, first of all, that's outside money coming in to get the rabble going. There will be more violence. We've seen violence in Minneapolis and in Portland and in Seattle and Los Angeles with church. Yeah.
It is a symptom of what occurs with this crowd when they don't get their way.
Right.
It was a reaction to Donald Trump, and they burned down 200 cities. And that's what happened. And so if they can rig elections, let's take Los Angeles for an example. If they can rig an election like with Spencer Pratt and literally count votes until he loses, right? And at one point they had counted 23,000 ballots in a row, out of which not one was for Spencer Pratt.
Right. Let me just give you a caution on that. The next second after that one was that tranche of votes was counted for Nithya Raman Raman. Was another one series of votes that most of which were for Spencer Pratt. So a snapshot in time doesn't tell the whole story, but it certainly does make one very concerned, especially. And it does look like they count votes until they find out their winner. It looks exactly like that because the system itself is rigged. It's illegally putting the thumb on the scale of the far left. That's why they wrote the rules that way in California.
And if they had not, if Spencer Pratt had somehow won and then went on to win the mayor's election, they would have burned the city down because they didn't get their way. They don't agree with the Constitution and its processes of elections. They just don't agree with it.
That's right. And we're going to get that. We're going to get the Supreme Court decision probably on Tuesday now, in which we find out when is election day and to what extent can states ask or allow ballots to come in after the election day, as long as it has a postmark. Well, now, of course, we are a complete reliance on the post office to do the right thing. Well, my mom was a mail lady, and let me tell you, being in complete reliance on the post office is a very bad bet. But they do tend to get the mail there. I'm not, no lie, but holy crow. She's never seen any people more besotted with beer, booze, and drugs. So this gentleman, Michael, says the system is corrupt. The only way we're going to have any effective change is the whole thing out. We're a country founded on a lie, chasing a dream with a clown, running a circus. Okay, this is right up your alley. Respond, please.
I'm afraid I disagree with that wholeheartedly. The problem is, for the last 100 years, the Democrat Party has shifted from being in common ground with the country, common ground meaning believing in the Constitution. We have shifted from our foundations for 100 years until now. We have part of a political party that says the hell with the Constitution, the hell with elections. If we can't rig them, we'll get violent about it. And it's not merely a dissimilar system. It's a diametrically opposed system. In our rights as we were founded, the individual has all the powers and all the rights. And in the socialist system, it is the state who has rights over every individual. So we were founded in the proper manner. We have mutated into being a hybrid between socialism and our Constitution now in this present day.
I would also ask this individual, what country has been founded upon the pristine and pure motives that you believe exist in this country without blood?
Bring the sinless nation out.
Bring the sinless nation out.
Let that nation stone arms.
And we all know the founders had a very delicate balance with the issue of slavery. They wrote all men are created equal. They meant all men are created equal, slaves included. They did not want to create a fissure in the South at the very beginning of the nation. And they they thought it would be better for comedy and for cohesion to continue as is and then solve it later, which of course Abraham Lincoln did.
At the cost of 1 million casualties.
That's right, and his life.
And there again, as original as our Constitution is, Victoria, our Civil War is utterly unique because a majority race went to war with itself to free a minority race. And not only went to war with itself, but it was a war for 4 years, costing 1 million casualties and literally burning down that whole portion of the country that had endorsed slavery. It was very cathartic, so to speak. We paid for that. We paid the price for that sin. And if not then, maybe since the Great Society was enacted in the 60s, and literally $28 trillion has been redistributed to the poor in this country to try and help them out. That's 28 trillion with a T.
I believe that.
Quite a sum of money.
That is thanks to Lyndon Johnson, who got that going, and of course, FDR, of course. So at this time when we celebrate the 250th birthday of the country and the Declaration of Independence, how do you see us faring over the next 250 years, and what would have to change in order for us to make that?
My hopes for the next 10 years is that there's a great division in the Democrat Party where half of the party starts to fight for the Constitution again and leaves these socialists out on a limb by themselves, and that they naturally die for not being fed. That's my hope for the country in the next 10 years. I think to the degree that we abide by the Constitution, to that degree, we will be a prosperous and peaceful nation. And with, over and above the Constitution, a recognition of humanity and God and just kindness towards one another. One of the greatest reconciling engines in our nation for 250 years was its Judeo-Christian heritage.
That's why they want to cleave us away from
That's
it.
why they want to kill it.
That's right. Because people forget that they are individuals with unique nature. And the individual is the very center of the way that this country has been created and all documents thereof. And people don't understand that. They prefer to have the collective because there's more free stuff there. But they don't understand that everything comes with a cost, including their liberty.
Exactly so. You cannot have the system they want and have freedom too. Nothing's free, not even freedom. Right?
That's right. Freedom
Yeah.
isn't free. That's
I mean,
true.
you can be given a loaf of bread, but if they take the rest of your life away, is it worth it?
Right.
I don't think so.
I just remember back hearing the old Soviet Union, where yet again another communist country has fallen because they just can't function after a certain period of time without guns and people dead in the streets. Hello, Iran, looking at you. And it's just, you need to remember that the individual is the key person in this, but
Yes.
But the individuals in Russia behind the Iron Curtain eventually got to the point where they just shrugged their shoulders. It was the old, there's nothing we can do about it. There's nothing we can.
The problem is if you complain in such a system, you don't get the loaf of bread. You get less. And your whole family gets less, and all of your friends, and you go to jail.
That's true. Look at COVID.
And
This is what happened in COVID. Richard, this is what happened in COVID. Just look back at who was trying to lock you down in COVID. And look at the fact that they wanted you to they wanted to keep pot stores open, liquor stores open, and churches closed.
Right. And now it's found out this Fauci was lying.
Yeah.
Every day from the beginning. That guy has to go, maybe not to a guillotine, but he ought to go to a town square and be vilified.
Terrible.
He did horrific things to this country.
He did, and he lied, and Trump bought it for a while. So what are you going to do? Oh, thought I was supposed to believe the experts. Oh, sucks to be you. Sucks to be us too.
Exactly.
Thank you.
So that was an instance of overreach by government. That is the thing that socialism does. That would be an everyday occurrence. You can go to school or you can't. You can go to church or you can't. Right? They would be dictating that.
There's somebody, oh God, now we're going to the hypothetical man in the sky. Keep on coming, baby. You're digging your own hole deeper and deeper, misspelled, of course. So, but Mike, I just wanted you to take a whack at this just because people don't understand that without biblical principles, this country could not, if it weren't for religion, this country would not have been founded. It was, would you just, you're the expert. Would you please say it in a very nice way? I probably would swear during it. It's not good for my.
There was a lot of unique things that came together at a certain time in human history that centered in our revolution and the formation of our Constitution. And part of that was an acknowledgement of a higher being. And you can't get further than, is it the third line of the Declaration of Independence? It is that line that transformed human history to being a history of freedom. And that line is that we are endowed by our Creator. Well, who is that? It's our Creator, and that's in the Judeo-Christian sense when we were founded. And it is by that Creator that we are endowed with certain inalienable rights, which means the state, and not the clown who wrote that message, can take my rights away.
Here it is. Unanimous declaration of the 13 United States colonies. When the course of human events becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the law of nature and the nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
The next paragraph.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, government are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive in these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Yeah.
Well, key word there, consent of the governed.
Sure is.
Did the population of LA consent that there'd be an election rigging system that would not allow Spencer Pratt to run in the general election for mayor? And
Spencer needed to get his homeless registration going a little bit better.
I think like the best thing that ever happened, one of the best things that ever happened for conservatism and as an attack on the administrative state was that Lee Zeldin lost the election for governor of New York.
Such a shame.
And I think the Spencer Pratt loss will it'll strengthen our conservatism.
And I think they created a much more powerful individual with that loss of his. I think that in November, Californians are going to go to the polls and they're going to vote on whether or not one should have to show identification before one votes. And that is going to be a game changer. And if President Trump can get through the Saving America Act, that would be helpful also.
Yes, very much.
I appreciate you coming on, and thank you so much for your time. I kept you longer than I told our friend I would, but I appreciate you coming on.
Happy to be with you, Victoria.
Thank you. Appreciate it.